Well, good evening, everybody, and thank you all for attending our October meeting. We are a week out this month due to trying to fit in other meetings with La Trobe, so that's why it's tonight. But thank you all for coming. Thank you to the staff that are here tonight. I appreciate you coming to our council meeting and just sharing your thoughts and the programs and processes that are going on through the council. So we'll go to number one, which is apologies and leave of absence, and we have one tonight, which is Councillor Phil Dickinson. We have number two, Declaration of Pecuniary and Conflicts of Interest, Local Government Act of 1993. I'll just remind councillors that if you have a pecuniary interest or a conflict of interest in any item on the agenda, that you will need to fill in the form and to give it to Alicia, please. Number three, the confirmation of minutes. We have the recommendation that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of the Kentish Council held at the Council meeting room Sheffield on the 17th of September 2024 be taken as read and confirmed. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Hay, Councillor Hughes. Has anyone got any comments that they would like to make about the minutes of the September meeting? Well, if nobody has any comments or questions, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. We don't have any presentations tonight, notices of motion or petitions. We do have a response to questions that were raised at our September meeting. The questions were from Roxley Filmingham from La Trobe. There were 2 questions and the responses have been sent to him. So we have a recommendation that the responses to the questions from Roxley Filmingham at the council meeting held on the 17th of September 2024 be received and noted. Could I have a mover? Councillor Lane, Councillor Cassidy. All those in favour? Aye. Anyone against? And that is carried. Public participation, we don't have any notices from the public, and public participation, as there's nobody in the gallery tonight, we'll be able to then go on to number 10. So in accordance with clause 25 of the Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulation of 2015, I will advise that the council will now acting as a planning authority. We have one development application here tonight, and that's at Cradle Mountain Road at Moena. And we have quite a long recommendation that the report by the Statutory Planning Officer concerning the development application of 2369 Cradle Mountain Road be received and consent is for the proposed development. And there are 3 points there. I'm not going to go through all the other points, but that is all part of the recommendation. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Haig and Councillor Lane. I will now hand it over to Caleb, our planning officer, who's going to give us a report tonight on this development application.
Yep, sorry, 1 second. I was going to figure out how to share my screen. Sorry.
So we are in receipt of this application and it is seeking approval for the intensification of an existing campground and development of an all-terrain vehicle ride at 2369 Cradle Mountain Road at Moena. So thank you, Caleb, very much for attending our meeting tonight, and I'll hand it over to you.
Good afternoon. So we have a development application at 2369 for the intensification of an existing campground and the development of an all-terrain vehicle ride. As you can see there, they've extended the existing campground, which is the area closest to the dam, and they've pretty much brought it up towards the Cradle Mountain Road there, and they are proposing a total of 31 sites, including the existing 16, which was approved in the previous development application. As you can see, there is an aerial provided within the natural values assessment, which just shows the area where that road is and the location of the dams. So as part of the ATV track, it is proposed to go through the lower part of the dam as shown there, and then it extends up throughout the property to the right-hand side onto 2 different points where they'll then turn around and go back the way they came, and then it will exit through the northern side where it is shown to go over a watercourse, but I believe there's a bridge over that watercourse, so it won't actually be going directly through it. As you can see there, that's just an aerial shot which was provided within the natural values assessment as to where the location of that track is going to go through the watercourse there. On the site inspection, I do believe that is the lower part of the dam. And yeah, I think he said about 1 metre deep. So that's the entrance where we're going to be going in. I probably should have got an image of where the little islands were just to show where that's going to go. And that was the exit point over there. I believe it's past that log that's fallen over there. So the main discretions were the intensification of that discretionary use on the land, since they're pretty much doubling what they have originally approved, and then the construction of that all-terrain track which goes throughout the watercourse. There were a few concerns raised within the representation. I have addressed those within the report, but if there's any further concerns, you can ask me on a specific point and I can provide an answer. In regards to the timber reserve, the applicant has been made aware of that is a forestry land and it does get felled and that sort of thing. So those concerns have been added, well, those notes have been added on the permit. And yeah, was there any questions in regards to any of the other sort of representations or any other questions?
Any other questions or comments from councillors? Councillor Thwaites.
The ATV, as it goes in and comes out.
Yep.
The representation mentioned that there'd be silt and churn up of mud and stuff in the water, which was going to be bad effect downstream.
Yep.
So works have been requested.
Yep.
So that doesn't happen.
Yep.
But what if it does still happen? I mean, I can imagine, I don't know what these vehicles look like, but I can imagine that they'll pick up mud and stuff on the track as they're going around.
Yep.
And then they go through the water and all that will come off. So it's not just a matter of making the ingress and, you know, the way in and out of the dam sort of mud proof.
Yep.
You still can collect mud elsewhere and take it into the dam. So I just wonder what happens if, you know, you've set these conditions, but when you get to the actual operation, it's still muddy.
Yeah. So I have included a condition on there as well, just to say that it has to be washed down before it's used, just to make sure that any sort of contaminants and that sort of thing before it enters the water are maintained.
Right.
I mean, I imagine a lot of the runoff and that sort of thing from the area, because it all slopes down towards that dam as well. A lot of that would be from the site. So I imagine a lot of that sort of mud and debris would be entering, but I've just added that condition just to say you need to wash down the vehicles before, just to prevent those contaminants from entering the waterway. In regards to, you know, if it does become an issue, I guess it's hard to determine, or it's difficult to determine that unless you have people who are actually speaking up and saying, who are further downstream and they're saying, you know, there's more contaminants entering the waterway and that sort of thing. It would be a relatively hard thing just to regulate as council, I would imagine. And it would be up to people who are using that waterway to kind of speak up and say, I don't believe these people have been operating the way that it has been conditioned, sort of thing. I imagine a lot of the time, if they're operating through the watercourse and that sort of thing, you'd go at times where you're not having a lot of sort of runoff from the Cradle Mountain area entering through that dam to minimise flow, because from what I'm aware, there are insurance, yes, to have insurance and that sort of thing to run that. So that would be subject to, you know, I imagine the risk of operating during times of high flow, that sort of thing. So I would think that he would be operating at times where flow is relatively low, and the sediment should hopefully, you know, disperse before it enters the creek that runs further down into Bulls Creek, I believe. Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to see it work.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just have a niggling worry.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lane.
And just as a rider to that, there is no monitoring on our behalf, is there? I mean, the only monitoring that will really happen is from somebody making a complaint down the other end of the, you know, the flow. Do we monitor, a venture like that will have fantastic Instagram, social media, which will show this is exciting. This is what you'll do on this property. Do we ever monitor that to see that it is being, I suppose it's pointless because it's extra staff hours, but it's just that I feel like you're going to have too much fun to wash down before you go through there. It's not going to happen. For me, I would feel that they just want to have fun and go through.
Based from what I understand is that he has one aquatic vehicle on the site at the moment,
Okay.
which he is the only person that would be operating that. From what I've seen, I saw an image on the Advocate earlier where it's pretty much him sitting in the driver's seat, and then he would have passengers at the back.
Okay, so he'll be responsible.
Yeah. So I guess he did convey that the site is for ecotourism, so it would be within his best interest to minimise the impacts on the land.
Brilliant.
So I would hope that he would be, acting accordingly and, not going too fast through the waterway, that sort of thing, making sure sediment isn't entering the water course, and that sort of thing, which is recommended within the natural values report as well, which I've reflected within the conditions of the permit. But yeah, I guess in terms of following it up, I guess if it had become, if council became aware that sediment was entering the waterway and entering downstream, then it would be a compliance issue and we would have to follow that up.
Thank you.
Councillor Blenkhorn.
Yeah, just a question like on point 2, impact property value.
Yep.
That can't be assessed under planning at all.
No, so it can't be considered under the planning scheme.
Thank you. Councillor Richards.
Yeah, so just a little bit further to Councillor Thwaites' query.
Mm-hmm.
We know this property pretty well when I was younger. That dam is actually in probably the top third, maybe the top quarter of the catchment area of that stream.
Yep.
Alvin Creek. And I thought probably the mud and things not the issue, but maybe if there's any oil or fuel leak would be more the concern I might have, because I think the soil, my experience would be that it sort of tries to, through that dam, which is quite a large dam, the soil will just slowly sort of sink to the bottom, whereas maybe any fuel or oil leaks might float on the top and then end up down through the system somewhere. So, I suppose the safeguard I'm wondering is what can we do to make sure that he sort of probably does regular maintenance and the regularly checks for oil leaks, and is there any
Yeah, so because that was a question that I did have for him up there, and he did say that they're being fully aquatic, they're sealed off pretty well. So that would help minimise the sort of oils and that sort of thing from entering the waterway further. I guess in terms of, making sure that ATV is properly maintained and that sort of thing, there could potentially be an additional condition to say that that ATV has to undergo regular maintenance to further ensure, petrol and all that sort of thing isn't entering the waterway there. But yeah, that is something that could potentially be looked at just to further minimise it, because that was one of the concerns is, petrol and that sort of thing entering the waterway. But he said it was all fully contained in there, which would make sense because you don't want water entering it in the first place. But yeah, it is something that could potentially be looked at.
Yeah, because I'm not sure where Levantine Lodge get their drinking water from, but they're at the end of that system before it goes to Lake Sapana. So I'm not sure whether they use I know they get water out of Bull Creek, but whether it's used just for general maintenance or whether it's anything to do with their operation, I'm not sure. The other one is I noticed you've got this no vegetation removal. How do we enforce that?
Well, my understanding is that the current location of the track has already been cleared for the walkways and that sort of thing. So there shouldn't be any vegetation removal as part of this application. So that further vegetation removal, I guess again, it's a matter of, people actually speaking up and saying that they believe that vegetation has been removed on the site. I guess the natural values assessment was fairly detailed into, the risk of threatened species being removed and that sort of thing, where I've also included conditions to say that they have to replant some of those grasslands and that sort of thing, or just plant in general to kind of increase the number of vegetation on the site. But again, yeah, with maintenance and monitoring of the site, I guess that's something that might be done through, if a complaint is brought up, it could be monitored through social media, that sort of thing, just to make sure that no trees have been removed.
More just a theoretical serious situation here is somewhere around that tree, a limb partly falls out of the tree and it says you've got to notify the council and get consent to, it might need removing, but it seems pretty honest to me that just to get a half-felled piece of branch out of the tree near the track, that someone from the council will give consent for you to go and do it. And so I'm not sure. I think the situation's right, we don't want any, but there will be some small situations there where you might just have to get some consent of the council, for in a storm, a limb's half got out of the tree, which they actually do.
Yeah. Yes, in that case, if it's already fallen and that sort of thing, it would be fine. If he does need to do maintenance and that sort of thing, I guess you just say, there's some potential risks with trees overhanging the track. I need to remove them, and it would just be like, that's fine if it's for safety. But I guess it's just a matter of, making sure that big trees aren't taken down, that sort of thing.
Yep.
If it's just like, small maintenance here and there probably wouldn't be any sort of issues with that. It's just to ensure that, that grasslands, that sort of thing aren't removed from the site that could potentially be threatened and that sort of thing.
Thank you, Councillor Richards. Could I just ask a question? So we have got a lot of recommendations here.
Yep.
As part of the recommendation that's got to agree to all that. Do you have a system, and perhaps Mrs. Phoebe might be able to answer this as well with you, that the council do follow up that these recommendations are being adhered to, or do you just, say you can do this, these are the recommendations, and we don't do anything to follow up unless you get a report from a neighbour or someone? You don't do any follow up?
Through Chair, we do make a note of any bullet points, particularly where there's building involved. There's always a referral process via that approval. In instances where there isn't any development that requires a building approval, then we do make note of particular conditions of concern that need to be complied with and just check on them.
Check on, so you would, yes.
I guess the other thing is, especially with this sort of site, that the owner's indicated that he's looking to do stuff in the future as well. So obviously, you're going to have to look and see if he's abided by some of the conditions on that previous permit, especially if you're going out there for another site inspection, that sort of thing. You might just say, you still need to do this.
Yeah. Well, if he doesn't adhere by these recommendations and the criteria here, then it's going to be detrimental to him for a further application, isn't it? Councillor Jones?
Yeah, thank you. And I'm glad Councillor Richards mentioned the vegetation removal, because I thought about that, and the condition no tree or vegetation to be felled, top, ring bark, uprooted, or otherwise willfully destroyed or removed without further written consent of the council. I'm sure the people running the place, that they've got their whole property to deal with, and if that's the condition for the whole property, they can't really maintain it. I mean, you'll get seedlings and things growing up in tracks, and before you know it, they're this high, and you just got to pull them out. Otherwise, you'll end up with a sock and great gum tree in the middle of your track. So I just wondered whether it would be better to say no tree or vegetation within the development area is to be felled, lopped, etc., etc. So that way we're talking about
just wherever the track is and that sort of thing. Yeah, look, I can modify that.
So within the development area.
Yeah, no tree or vegetation within the development area.
Yeah.
Is to be felled, lopped, topped, etc. Yeah.
So the mover and a second are happy if we add that?
Oh, sorry, through the chair, I was just going to say, it really is a generic condition, and I guess common sense is always used when considering that condition. We don't expect a developer to come and get rid of consent, as I said, to remove a tree that's falling or dangerous, or there's some scrubby undergrowth that's come up that wasn't there previously. It's difficult to put a condition on to say you can't remove any more than a certain percentage. So I guess it's there as a measure. If we determine that there's been, considerable removal of vegetation, it gives us a compliance to fall back on and,
So we don't really need to put that in and add that then in your professional advice, that we wouldn't need to put that in?
well, I don't believe so. As I said,
Yeah.
it's taken a common sense approach to it.
Councillor Twaits, would you be happy to accept that?
Well, if you want to write by taking a common sense approach and into the that I'd be happy, but because that's what you've said. If it's flexible, then it should say that. But it doesn't look flexible to me. It's quite rigid. No tree or vegetation is to be felled.
Ring back.
So, yeah. So yeah.
No, would you have a comment to that, Mrs. Phoebe?
No, nothing other than.
Then what's
common,
there?
it's common
It's sort of an
sense
underlying
across-
common sense there. And you're happy with that, Caleb?
Yeah.
Right, thank you. All right, well, and now how do the councillors feel? What's your opinion with that? We leave it as it is in number 12?
Sorry, through the chair. Yeah, I'm like councillor Twaits, it does read very stringent to me. If I was a landowner, I would take that as what I'm supposed to do. I wouldn't think I could go over and pull a dangerous tree without contacting council to get consent to do so. And that was sort of what I was getting at a minute ago, that how do we make this so it's common sense approach to it? And because if not, if a neighbour who's putting representation and sees that, he goes over there and takes a piece out of the tree that's quite dangerous, then you've got to report to council, he's gone against the conditions in his development application that was recommended. So, yeah, I'm just not sure how you word it to make it. There's enough flexibility in there that it
Allows him to do
allows him to do those small sorts of maintenance jobs that he requires, but also stops him from just going out there with another.
Have you got a comment to make to that?
Not really.
No, it's a tricky one. It is, and I think, as Mrs. Phoebe being a tenant.
I wonder through you, Chair. I mean, again, I think the practicalities would come if that was reported. We would, largely provide guidance about the fact. And even if they, took the conservative approach and phoned us up and said, look, these things are happening and we want to maintain the track, we would again give them that guidance. I think it does provide a conservative point so that at least we'll get the question if they do maybe go beyond common sense to have them check in with us. I think that's not a bad outcome. Trying to frame it up in a sense of, what is common sense. I think it's better to have those conversations and the guidance is then coming around a conversation rather than trying to articulate it in a permit condition.
Yeah, thank you for that.
So just to comment on that, then maybe if this gets passed, that maybe the plan is explain.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah,
To
absolutely.
the applicant that, that little piece in there is actually a common sense approach and, yeah, because I mean, if that was me putting that in, I just feel that was the best of the law that would have passed, that's all.
Yeah.
So you'll be having,
I'm willing to move a motion to amend that to say no tree or vegetation. I just wanted to test it. If I can get a second as well.
so what would you like to
No tree
change?
or vegetation and add the 4 words within the development area is to be felt dot, because that's what we're trying to control, whereas that looks like a rule for the whole block.
All right, so this is you would like to amend point 12. So you'd move that one. Have I got a seconder for point? Oh, Councillor Richards. All right, so I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, so 7 to 1. So we will make the new motion, including within the development area. Is that the words that you wanted within the development,
Within the development
area?
Thank you.
To be added to number 12, and that is our new motion now. So we've still got a mover and a seconder for the motion, including.
Like to debate that motion and have a bit more input to that motion. Owning a block of land in another council area, one of the stipulations is that you're not allowed to fall a tree over 3 metres in height. I think that's a more sensible approach because, you know, like that tree can, you know, anything under that can be, you know, you don't want something getting away from you, like, you know, something that's blown in off the road. There could be a night seed that's blown in off the road, which is a, you know, not a native tree, for instance. It could be blown off a roadside verge or anything, you know. There's so many weeds and trees and situations that get blown in off, you know, come on truck tyres, car tyres, so forth. I think I'd like to have a look at making an amendment to that, anything over 3 metres needs to be looked at in the planning.
So we've got we had the amendment that Councillor Twaits and Councillor Richards, and that was voted for. So now you're wanting to put in another amendment in.
I'd like to add this 3 metre clause into that amendment if I can get support for it.
All right. So we'll have another amendment to the motion. Is that right?
Yeah, because we've already voted on the amendment.
Yeah, that's right. So this will be another amendment that you would like to add.
Yeah, add to that amendment.
Yeah, number 12.
Yeah.
That no tree higher than 3.
No, any tree higher than 3 metres will need to have approval. Yeah,
Approval from.
Right. Have I got a seconder for that motion?
I'm just checking, does that actually all equate? So, because at the moment we've got the situation where nothing within the development area, and we're going to say anything over 3 metres needs approval, but at the moment everything needs approval. So you're largely suggesting that we're going to have anything under 3 metres doesn't need approval.
Yeah.
And anything over 3 metres does. So that's largely.
It could be, yeah, it could be this. We've got what's the threatened species on the property?
Well, there is a variation. I don't think there's any threatened species which were particularly identified on that site. However, you do have threatened species that can be, you know, lower lying vegetation. I have included a condition on there as well to say, you know, there needs to be ongoing weed maintenance and that sort of thing as well, which is, I guess, would address your concern in regards to that sort of area in terms of, I guess if you were to say any vegetation over 3 metres needs to be considered, it might be a bit difficult to monitor that. Yeah, so that's just my comment, I guess. But yeah.
Right. So
can I just understand the intent? Because we're covering everything over 3 metres at the moment. So is your intent to make it so they can clear anything under 3 metres without approval?
Well, to a degree, yes, yeah.
You've got to be careful on that because you've got a lot of the small stuff, the cutlery and all that. Warrant.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm just trying to understand the intent of it, because at the moment it's covered, but you're largely shifting that from.
Yeah, well, I'm speaking about a situation where in another council area where they have brought in a clause where, yeah.
All right, well, we have an amendment. Councillor Blenkhorn has moved that we add that part to the point 12 as well, to include that all trees under 3 metres don't have to have approval. Is that what you're wanting? Have I got a seconder for that amendment? Then, as there is no seconder, then we will not be including that in that amendment. So we'll go back to the amendment that was approved, and so we've now got point 12. All right. Are there any other questions that you would like to ask about the development application? Councillor Twaits.
On page 14, the picture that you showed of the whole site, it looked like there had been extensive excavations to get that road down closer to the dam. Is that just a trick of the light in that?
Could potentially be, yeah. I mean, I don't have a comprehensive knowledge as to, where the orientation of where that track was to begin with. I know that site closer to the dam, that was originally the approved camp spots. But yeah, I'm unsure as to, the location of that dam compared to what was previously approved.
No, it's just, it looks like there's a wall there, about 4 metres high, judging by if that's a car in it.
Yeah.
And it looks quite steep, and nothing is said in the application about it. I thought that the application would be for, before work like that took place.
Yeah.
But it appears to be after it's taken place.
I'm unsure as to when that image was taken.
Yeah.
When I was at the site, if you could look at figure 6, it kind of, that's me standing at the other point of the dam, kind of looking towards where all those works have occurred. You can see there is a bit of vegetation in between where that dam is and where the vehicle is parked at the top, which is where that site is. So it could be that image was taken quite a while ago, and now the owner has done means to kind of stabilise that bank through vegetation and that sort of thing, which was, I believe, a condition on his previous permit anyway, trying to minimise that.
Thank you, Councillor Twaits.
Yeah, just to comment on that, I would think it probably is more an optical illusion in some way, because it's not that steep a
You do know the area.
grade of ground there, so yeah, I'm not sure, but I can't see why it would be that big cut there, as you're saying.
All right, well, are there any other questions or comments? Councillor Blenkhorn?
The reason why we're here tonight debating this development is because there's been 2 representations, is that right?
That's right.
So there was one representation, I can't say who they were, but the other representation was from the Department of Sustainable Timbers, which is just something they normally do with development after joining their land, just to say, this land's going to be felled and it's subject to change, we cut trees, that sort of thing, which is why I've just put a note on there. But I believe the owner already knows that land's subject to clearing anyway, because it's lived there for quite a while. But it's just, I included it as a representation because I guess that's how they typically say there's no formal objections, but however, we would like to include this sort of thing. It is information to the applicant.
Thank you.
So just with that then, if there wasn't this other representation only from Sustainable Timbers,
yeah,
it'd still come to a council meeting?
It's likely it would have been done as a delegated. I've included it because we have received that other representation because they just want to make that person aware of the works that do occur. So it would have just been included as a note to say, look, this is the, you know, what's happening next door, essentially, yeah.
Any other comments or questions? Councillor Richards.
Yeah, look, I'd just like to point out, I think it's terrific we're seeing these sorts of setups in some of that area. Like, I have concerns sometimes in the farming area, but these are ideal areas where, and it's great for our municipality. I mean, I travel through there 2 or 3 times a year, especially through the summer. They was last year, you know, virtually every time you went through the area that we gave them permission for before would be full of overnight vehicles, some carrying, some camping, whatever. So, you know, as long as we can make sure these things are sustainable and, you know, they're not damaging the environment, I think they're really good for our municipality. So.
Thank you. All right. As there are no more comments or questions, we do have a recommendation that the development application be received and consent is for the proposed development substantially in accordance with the endorsed plans, unless modified by a condition of this permit. And there are 13 points there, plus other notes. So and we've got a mover and a seconder, so I will put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. So thank you, Caleb, very much for leading us through that and being so detailed in your report. So we appreciate that, and thank you for answering our questions for us. We really appreciate that. Thank you for all your hard work. Thank you. We have a recommendation now that council cease to act as a planning authority. Could I have someone to move? Councillor Haig, Councillor Cassidy. All those in favour? Anyone against? And that is carried. We'll go on to number 11, which is the Development and Regulatory Services Department. So we have a recommendation that the report advising of building and plumbing applications and notifications be received for the month of September 2024 be received. Could I have a mover? Councillor Lane, Councillor Richards. Have anyone got any comments or questions about the Development and Regulatory Services? No comments or questions? Then I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. So we'll go on to 11.2, and this is the Planning Development Application Status Report. And we have a recommendation that the report by the Manager Development and Regulatory Services concerning Planning Development Application Status Report September 2024 be received. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Haig and Councillor Hughes. Anyone got any questions about the status report? Councillor Thwaites.
There's something on there about Browns Road conversion to function centre. And that's been to our council on other occasions.
Yeah, that's on page 1.
There's also Riley's Quarry, which seems to be dragging on a bit.
It's been going for a while.
Right, so we've got 2 questions here. So, Mrs. Fever, would you like to answer those?
Yes, through the chair. So the Browns Road change of use to function centre is Skyview Barn application. You might recall previously it was refused. There was went to appeal, but that was withdrawn. So this is a new application. It's currently on hold or on stop pending a request for further information. In relation to the North Quarry, we're still with APA. It takes a considerable time. So we haven't had notification from them yet to advertise. So that's what we're waiting on.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Councillor Blenkhorn.
Just on that situation where you can request further information on the development, is there a time frames for that request to be brought to council at all? Is there a...
To be brought back to council?
Yeah.
No, it's purely that's up to the applicant.
So
the clock just stops.
just another question on that then. So If the planning scheme changes and the title of that property gets changed to a different zoning, for instance, or possibility, does that still get looked at under the old zoning?
From memory, I'd have to verify it, but I believe there is a transitional period. So yes, if the application was made under the old scheme, I believe it still is assessed under that scheme.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions about the status report? Right, we have a mover and a seconder, so I shall put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. We shall go on to number 12, which is the Office of the General Manager. Now we have the appointment of a proxy for councillor representation on the Municipal Alliance Committee. So we have the Office recommend comments and conclusion for nominations to be called for the Kentish Council proxy representative on the Municipal Alliances Committee. If more than one nomination is received, a vote be conducted. So we have a recommendation that the report by the General Manager concerning the appointment of a proxy for councillor representation on the Municipal Alliance Committee be received and council appoint a proxy representative to the Municipal Alliance Committee. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Haig, Councillor Cassidy. So to complete this process, we need to have someone move for somebody to be the proxy for the Municipal Alliance. Could I have someone to move to nominate someone? Councillor Twaits.
I'd like to move Councillor Richards be appointed the proxy.
Right, have we got a seconder for Councillor Richards? Councillor Hughes. Have we got any other nominations? Then, as there are no other nominations, then I will declare that Councillor Richards will fulfil the role of proxy for the council representation on the Municipal Alliance Committee to be received, and that Councillor Richards will fulfil that role. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. So we'll go on to 12.2, Code of Conduct. So we have a recommendation here that the report by the General Manager concerning Code of Conduct be received and Council note the commencement of the new Code of Conduct Order 2024 that replaces Council's existing model Code of Conduct, and that came into effect on the 10th of September 2024. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Richards, Councillor Lane. So I shall open it up for discussion. I'll hand it over to our General Manager if you've got any comments that you would like to make about that one.
Yes, so this is one of the ones that we workshopped, and so largely it's had a bit of discussion already, although minimal. So yeah, largely just falling in line with our requirements.
So one of the things, options for council to consider is that council does not have an option in relation to implementing the Code of Conduct Order of 2024. We don't have an option there. So the recommendation is that we accept the report. So any comments or questions?
Yeah, I'd just like to just make a comment. Part 1, decision making, dot point 4. Councillor must A, make decisions solely on merit, and B, not take irrelevant matters, circumstances into account when making decisions. I just don't know how could that be policed. How could you make an assumption either way on that? Yeah, it just beggars belief to me. Just a comment, yeah.
Thank you for that. This paper actually went out for public consultation around the local councils in Tasmania. So that was an opportunity for all councillors to actually comment about this particular order. But we'll just note that you've made that comment there. Have you got any comment you'd like to make about that?
No, we had our chance for feedback,
right.
And
we did.
Didn't have anything go back. So.
Go back to that. All right. Any other comments or questions? Then we have a mover and a seconder, so I shall put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. So we'll go on to 12.3, which is the Public Interest Disclosure Policy and Model Procedures Review. So we have a recommendation that the report by the General Manager concerning public interest disclosure policy and model procedures review be received, and that Council adopt the updated public interest disclosure policy, adopt the updated public interest disclosure model procedures, and note the delegation of the public interest disclosure officer role. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Haig, Councillor Twaits. Anyone got any comments? That was a lot of reading there. There were about 43 pages there within that document. But is anyone, would you like to comment on?
Well, I think just highlighting the process really, which was the Ombudsman writing to us and requesting a copy of our policy. We submitted. They came back with the 4 refinements proposed, and we've largely adopted those for your approval, consideration and approval tonight. So
Right.
it's more a compliant piece as much as anything.
Anything else? Right. All right. Okay. Any questions to our General Manager? Well, I'll put it to the vote then. All those in favour? Aye. Anyone against? Then that is carried. All right, we'll go on to 12.4, and we have an updated instrument of delegation. And we have a recommendation that the report by the General Manager concerning updated instrument of delegations be received. And there are 2 points there for motion 1 and 2 points for motion 2 and motion 3. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Hughes, Councillor Twaits. So I shall open it up for comment or question, or if you've got any comments.
Yeah, it's very similar to the previous one in the sense that I think it was Simmons Wolfhagen reviewed them more generally from LGAT's perspective, and we've received advice from LGAT just to update our delegations on those few points that are under the background.
All right, Councillor Twaits.
And Mayor, I think this really highlights the complexity of the job of the General Manager, and you've got to be all things to all people, and up down the line, and it's a complex job, and I know that I wouldn't be able to do it. So big job. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Right. Or okay, then we do have a mover and a seconder for this recommendation. So I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. Okay, we'll go on to 12.5, and we have our annual plan Q1 progress update. That the report by the General Manager concerning the 24-25 Kentish Council annual plan Q1 progress update, July to September, be received, and that Council receive and note the 24-25 Kentish Council annual plan Q1 progress update for the quarter July to September 24. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Hay, Councillor Cassidy. So I'll open it for any comments that you would like to make.
I'm not that familiar with quarterly reporting like this. So we normally get, like a 6-monthly review, financial review, to actually look at our annual plan quarter by quarter. Not sure that we've done that before.
No, well, it was. I thought it was new for me too. So
it is new, so
right.
It is something we've started. Although I think from talking to some of the team, we may have done it some time back in the past. So it's a bit of a back to the future scenario. But I think it's just important for us to be able to share with you, but also with the community, just the promises that we make under our annual plan to make some progress under the key initiatives that are in our plan, and keep us accountable, and obviously a good opportunity to share when things aren't going well, and we need to reshape expectations through this process as well. So if things aren't quite hitting the mark or getting over the line, then we get a chance to early engage and adjust your expectations and the communities as well. But as you can see, things are going relatively well. We've still got some teething challenges in getting some of the data. So I think the opportunity here is start to bring, measures and performance data to you and share, how we're going. It's also been good for us as a team to be able to reflect on some of the data that's coming through this process and adjust what's going on or refine what's going on where things aren't quite getting the mark. So hopefully more to come.
I totally agree with everything you say. We go to a lot of trouble to make an annual plan.
Yes.
And then we review it at the end of it.
Yes.
And this is a much better one.
Much better.
So, I'm really happy with it and it was great to read it. So, I'm looking forward to doing it this way.
Oh, my sentiments.
So we've put a lot of effort into coming up with the first one. So
See that?
I'm sure they'll be very appreciative.
As I was reading it, I thought, Jesus, there's a lot of work gone into this, and we got that amount of workers to be able to do it. So yeah, but I'm really happy to see it there, and it will keep us on track.
Well, we would like to express your sentiments and pass on to the team that we're very appreciative of this quarterly report from the annual plan. So thank you. If you could pass on our thanks to the team, that would be most appreciated. Any other comments or questions? Then I shall put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. So we're 13, Corporate and Business Services Department. So we have a recommendation on page 58. So we have the officer's comment and conclusion. The attached report provides transparency, accountability in relation to council allowances and expense payments for the quarter ended 30th of September, that the report by the acting team leader concerning council allowances and expenses for the quarter ended September be received. Can I have someone to move that? Councillor Haig, Councillor Lane. So they're the details there. And there was a report there for one page which showed the specific amounts. All right, I shall put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? And that is carried. Finance report. So we have a recommendation that the financial report for the period ending September 24 as provided by the acting team leader for finance be received. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Lane, Councillor Thwaites. Has anyone got any comments that they would like to make? I had one and it was on page 7 and I was just wondering why there is a Latrobe page in there. On page 7. Latrobe Council Investment Summary.
Maybe they got ours.
I believe it is actually the Kentish data.
So I didn't know whether we were comparing ours to Latrobe or what it was, or whether it was just popped in there by mistake.
I think it's just a header issue. The dollars actually align back to
the
report. So that's our bad.
I'll leave it.
Fix that up.
Follow that up. Good, thank you. On page 7 there.
Thanks for sharing.
Any other comments about the financial report? Councillor Thwaites.
Yeah, thanks. The summary of cash and investments by institution looks really different to what we used to get. I do notice one thing, that there's no Bendigo Bank investment. We used to have a number of investments, say 500,000 invested at such and such for 3 months or 6 months in this interest rate. They're all sort of rolled in there. It looks like we've just got one big one for 5 million. Is that right? Or is it invested in a number of?
There's, I think on page 8, it does say that we've got CBA, ANZ, and some of the percentage of interest there on page 8.
I get the impression from the term, we might take it on notice unless Karen can shed some light, but it looks like with an average term in days of 1 for the CBA, that is an online sort of at call savings investment. And then investment is a term investment, so.
There used to be quite a number of accounts, all for about 500,000 or so.
Yeah.
And they'd be invested at varying interest rates.
That's right, we did.
You know, and then one would roll over and the other one would, and I mean, I think NAB's pretty safe, but something about,
Right.
you know, putting all the eggs into one basket.
Amount invested, yes. Right. And that's all on page 8 there. Yeah. I'll leave that to take on notice of the finance team. All right. Thank you for the question.
I'm sure they know what they're doing.
Right.
To clarify, is your exact question around the risk in these being bundled up, or?
It's just a change, through the chair. It used, as I said, used to be a number of accounts in there, but it's all consolidated into one big account now. I don't know whether that's something that council would normally be party to, or. But
Sorry if I may.
Well, yeah, you go.
I was just going to advise that the audit panel has requested a treasury report, which would include our banking and investment overview, which will head to the next audit panel meeting.
Yep.
That report might provide the clarity that you're seeking around the strategy that sits behind it. So,
I will note also the last column talks about an investment policy maximum, which is 80%. So it is in keeping with the policy, albeit that it's not split out like you might have seen it in the past, and noting that we've outreached the benchmark. It's potentially been an attractive rate that's meant that it all got bundled in, I suspect. And from time to time, having been in the banking sector, some of the banks want to get a bit of cash grab happening for their own liquidity purposes. So it will come those times. Yeah. But
good.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. So any other questions about the finance report? Then we have a mover and a seconder, so I will put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. We're up to 14, the proposed stock underpass policy, and we have a recommendation that the report by the Manager of Infrastructure and Assets concerning proposed stock underpass policy be received, subject to any minor changes identified, that the draft stock underpass policy be finalised and adopted, and Council considers a $50,000 budget allocation in the 24-25 financial year towards a recently completed stock underpass that initiated this policy, and the Council officers used as a reference point in its development. Could I have someone to move this? Councillor Richards and Councillor Cassidy. Has anyone got any comments to make? We have discussed this at length, and we've put it out to public consultation, and so now we have the final draft now. Any other comment? No comment? Councillor Richards.
Did we get much feedback or?
Didn't get any feedback at all. No, it must be good. So I guess it's, well, it's certainly a limited market for who would be interested, other than the general ratepayer who might say, what are we getting all this money away for this infrastructure for? I guess that's the interest of most people. But in terms of the take up on it, very limited scope of people. And I guess if they read this, they'll go $50,000. So that's fantastic. I'm not going to raise this, because if that goes through like that, I'm happy, mate. But yeah, no, it was good to go through that process and give people the opportunity for certain.
Absolutely.
I believe the Mayor mentioned on the radio at one point, it's been in the Advocate newspaper, on their website, community meetings. So plenty of opportunity for over a month period for feedback on it.
So just a second question on that. I guess we're actually going to up to 50,000 for the recent one, rather than the 25,000 that we.
Right. Okay, if there are no other questions or comments, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. Operations Department, nil. Information Council forums. We have a recommendation that information on topics discussed at the October 1, 24 Council forum be received. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Lane, Councillor Haig. So we have a list there that was discussed at the forum. Anyone want to add or take away anything there? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour?
Aye.
Anyone against? Then that is carried. So we have the delegates' report and a recommendation that the delegates' reports be received and noted. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Cassidy, Councillor Richards. So I've got a list of things that I've gone to and been part of over the last month, and Deputy Mayor Penny Lane has got her list there of meetings and functions as well. Has anybody else got a comment? Councillor Hughes.
I won't do any good. Right, first up there, I met with Jen Butler. She come and visited the bean shed there, and she had another appointment in town as well. And she came up to send the place the same day. So, it was quite welcome to see her. The Claude Road meeting, the Claude Road meeting was held, the AGM, that went very well. They made a lot of money on the market day, about 3,837, and decided to give $1,500 to the SES here. So it was a donation to the SES for equipment and that, and upgrade. There'll be no charges and that. $10,000 grant for the Mural Fest, not for the mural out there on the container, and they get sent in painting now, so they'll be going up on it. And the land care people are putting some plants around the front of it to make it look better. Next one was Leonie Hiskett. She popped in the mean shed there, brought her son Casey along. Leonie is stepping down next year, and Casey is running for the seat. So that was good. The Sheffield honey shed was a pretty well busy amongst the bees down there. So it was good there. What they've done is launch a new promo for the Tasmanian leatherwood honey. There's a link to the world out from the wilderness and that, and it's clean, no sprays or anything, so it's got a real good green image, and also there's promotion on the floor. Now, I chaired the meeting at the Barrington Hall, AGM, and it was a very good meeting, and what they've done out there is marvellous what they're doing, and also the committees are going to do some more themselves.
And thank you to Councillor Lane for sending the minutes of the meeting so we know what's going on out there. Thank you.
And also went down on Saturday morning down the cricket ground, and it was the first game down there. The ground looks good, and Sheffield did win that on that day.
So in addition to that, they got 3 wickets while I was there, so they didn't want me to leave.
I did hear that.
Very superstitious, these people.
These cricketers. Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Anyone else got anything that they would like to share with us that they've been out and about in the community over the last month? There's a lot happening, and I'd just like to remind all councillors we've got Mural Fest starting on the 3rd of November. So it'd be really good if you can pop into Mural Park sometime that week and have a look at the painting and say hello to all the artists and just be part of the whole Mural Fest week. There'll be a lot of people coming and going, which will be fantastic. We're looking forward to it. Any other comments?
Yeah, just
Councillor Blenkhorn.
Just comment. I noticed a lot of people that are taking the time out to pick up rubbish on the roadside bins. Well, I'm semi-supportive of it, but there is risk involved. And yeah, I think they sort of take a risk on by themselves. But
So I'll just make one comment to that. They are registered with Clean Up Australia or one of those organisations. It's not done through the council, but they are registered, and so they have to go through an understanding of what they have to do to be able to go out onto the road. So they're not just all meeting and just making up their own mind. I think there's certain regulations that they have to follow through. I think it's Clean Up Australia that they're working through. Are you familiar? I think that's what it is, yes.
yeah, well, I'm pretty assured that this person who I say, and I doubt if they would have been registered personally. But yeah, on another point, just the dead wildlife on our roads. I know down our way, like it's just a common occurrence. The stench up the street, it's pretty riveting stuff. Is there any avenue for council staff to actually pick up some of the dead wildlife that's in the town itself? It's very unsightly and it's...
If they get a works request through, they'll action. And that's how it's always worked. For some areas, people aren't worried about it, like there's a cost of things and they have to pick them up, but they do it. Like, I mean, anyone that picks up on wildlife in the built-up areas, if there's a request comes through, regardless.
Yeah, so it will happen if a request comes through, yeah.
Because sometimes they might not know about it.
Mm. Mm. So thank you. And I think there's the litter on the side of the road. When I went to Devonport the other day, there was an awful lot of litter through Lower Barrington.
Yep.
And when I came back that afternoon, it was gone. So I don't know how that happened, so whether it was council that picked it up or some very kind, considerate community members stopped and picked it up. I don't know, but it looked much better when I came home than the rubbish on the way down. Are there any other comments, councillor Hughes?
Another thing too, you're talking about litter and that, I'm very disappointed the contractors work with the state growth. They haven't done anything to clearing the drains or anything down through Chowds Hill. It's been like that for good 8 months. And the amount of litter, like you said, on the side of the road, I thought they'd go along as part of their maintenance on the road, clean up that stuff.
Can you make a comment to that, Alison?
No, other than if you don't maintain drains, your road gets potholed and other issues too. But yeah, in terms of their program and their relationship with the contractor, I'm not exactly sure whether how that's configured.
And that's through state road?
Yes, state road.
Yeah,
sorry.
absolutely.
Just the other crowd used to do it, it looks good, but nothing's been done.
Can we send a request to state growth and say we're concerned about the state of the road?
Yeah.
And maybe if you're driving down there, have a look yourself and see what's warranted, and you'd be happy to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, councillor Hughes. Thank you, Jonathan. All right, any other comments or anywhere you've been out and about? All right, we'll have a recommendation and a mover and a seconder, so I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Aye. Anyone against? And that is carried. Council decision status report. So we have a recommendation that the September 24 status report of open council meeting decisions be received. Could I have someone, councillor Lane, councillor Richards, have moved that and seconded. Any comments about the status report? No comments? Then I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. We have the community information evening notes. So the first one is that the recommendation is that the notes of the Railton Community Information Evening held on the 26th of September 2023 be received. I think it should be 24. Yeah, 24. The attachment says 24. So could I have someone to move that? Councillor Hughes, councillor Cassidy. Any comments?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment. I was very disappointed with the attendance at that meeting. And when the question was asked if a letterbox drop had been done in the town, the word was that it was too expensive to do a letterbox drop around Railton, which had been done previous on every other time. I found that a bit disheartening. Not everyone's on Facebook. Not everyone just relies on word of mouth, but I was very disheartened that we're not doing a letterbox drop around town. And I think that sort of highlighted the lack of numbers at that meeting.
Thank you, councillor Blincourt. I'll take that comment on notice and we'll discuss that with the staff. And unless, have you got a comment that you'd like to make about that? A letter drop?
I'm not aware of letterbox drops. The other thing that we had with that particular community information was our visual messaging board was out of action, which always has a big impact. But we did have flyers produced and posters were taken around town to try and offset that one. But yeah, can into the letterbox drops.
Yeah, so it certainly was advertised, but maybe there were a lot of people that if they don't see those areas of, maybe they're not on social media, but then there were flyers put up around the town as well. And we would normally have the electronic board, but that was out of action. And that would have certainly given everybody the information they needed. Councillor Lane.
And the Kentish Voice puts it in ad as
yes, well. And I always mention it in my mayor's message too. So, and if I'm on the radio, I'll always mention when the community meetings are on as well. Councillor Richards.
So, yeah, on the letter drop, I think we've probably used Australia Post from memory.
Yeah, we used to do it.
Previous years.
Mm.
And I know like we often as well did South Brighton or Lower Barrington area use.
Oh, did you?
And they often
Yeah.
get ours, so I think, I don't know how that gets mixed up like
Right.
that, but I think maybe there's been a bit of miscommunication of where
Right.
notices should be going in the past, and I don't know whether we can talk with Australia Post or something to, if we're going to continue that, to make sure that.
They go to the right area.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well, we might leave that and let the staff can look into that and see if it's viable to do the letter drop, or we still use the same avenues to publicise the meeting. All right.
Just a point on that, Madam Mayor. I thought, shouldn't this direction be coming from the council? It seems to be a lot of staff, leave it up to the staff sort of going on around this council table lately. This should be coming from a direction of the council. If we want to have a letterbox drop, well, it comes from the council, doesn't it?
Yes, it can do. We can certainly discuss it, and if the councillors agree to a letterbox drop, then we can recommend that to the staff. But then I think we have to understand the reason why the letterbox drop has stopped.
Well, I was of the understanding that you come out and told the audience that the cost was involved.
Yes. So, well, that was my understanding.
How much penny pinching are we doing up here? How much is the cost to send out a few papers to the residents in the Rowton community to tell them that there's a public meeting on? What would be the cost?
So do you know if anybody that missed the meeting because they didn't know?
Well, that's my assumption was. The reason why is because every other time there's a letterbox drop around the town.
Yeah.
Well, let us have a look at what's happened in the past. I'm understanding that we haven't been doing the letterbox drops. It's been the signage. So I'm happy to come back with information just to clarify that. And I mean, largely happy to do letterbox drops if everyone wants to pay for that. Obviously, it comes at a cost. I'm not sure exactly what it is, so we can understand that and bring it back and share it with you.
Councillor Twaits.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with Councillor Binkle. I do think that we should try and build up these events. It's really it's an opportunity to have an informal gathering with the community, and I'm quite pleased that there was no supper there that night because there were so few people. But putting on a supper where everybody has a chat afterwards and that it's part of that, coming together of the community, the council, the people, and it's great when you can talk about things and just have a chinwag and it's not just about delivery of facts. It's about keeping that relationship going. That's what's different about us and a city council, I believe. We're a rural council and we've got an opportunity to meet and to know and to understand the community. So I think these events can be really a good social.
Yeah, I agree.
And I'd be happy to have a bigger budget if it means that they can be successful and they work.
So we would have another meeting at the beginning of next year when the weather's still a little bit warmer. So, I mean, that was part of the reason that, the numbers were a bit low when it was in the colder. But if we have it at the beginning of the year when the weather's still reasonable, then maybe we would consider having the supper down at Railton and we will put out a letter drop. And any comments who would agree with that? Any comments?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I've got something else to say. Yeah, no, look, I agree with that, Councillor Craig and bring on that if we can encourage more people there, and I think you're right, the right time of the year when, before daylight saving goes out even. And just try and get some people there. But I mean, I find this in our community, there's always a few people that seem interested in wanting to come along and have a say. Most of the ones that have a go at you don't want to come to a public meeting and say anything. It's normally the people that are quite happy to come along and sort of ask some questions and find out what's going on. So I just don't know how you shake that sort of mentality of trying to encourage some people to come out and are not coming now. We'd love everyone to be engaged in our community if we could, but I mean, that's just not part of the possibilities of life, really. So, yeah, it's probably whether we come up with some new way of even, to get them there. I don't know.
Councillor Lane.
I'd like to, this time next week, we are sitting in Lower Barrington Hall.
We are.
There will be no letter drop and there will be no LED board. So let's have a look. The Lower Barrington Hall.
And they always do a supper down there. The committee down there at the hall always puts supper on.
Without a letter drop and without an LED board, let's have a look what the numbers are there.
Yeah, right, okay. Well, it definitely will be in the Kentish Voice.
In the Voice, it's on notice boards, it's on Facebook.
Yeah, it's on Facebook, it's on the Kentish Council website too, on there. So they can look at it there. Anyway, we'll see what happens next week.
Through your chair, look, I'm happy for us to work out the best way to communicate with the different parts of our community as well.
Definitely.
So it might be that, different parts of our community want communication in different ways. So, I mean, happy to explore that. If it's not working down at Rowan, then, let's shift it to something that is going to work better. And, ultimately we'll make all efforts to market these things and make sure we maximise the number of people that's in everyone's interest to get the information out and share and exchange. So certainly supportive of these events.
All right, thanks for that conversation, Councillor Blenkhorn. So we will look into that we've got 2 to go for this year and then we'll be starting another round next year.
I'd like to ask a question now that they talked about the FOGO and the bins going out Friday down the road there, and someone was listed there didn't put it out the night before. So has that all changed now, has it?
Well, they know down at Round.
Yeah, down the road. There's apparently they're picking up the bins and that a lot earlier.
And people weren't getting them out in time, so it's
No.
got to encourage them to put them out the night before.
That's correct.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not quite sure
That was brought up as well.
who would be doing that, and maybe because it's always been you put your bins out the night before.
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, unless they have changed the time and they've caught people out, which is a possibility. So I'm not sure. Have you got any specific details? Or
No, it was on the Facebook, and that was
right.
I was having to go, I missed me bin and all that. Yeah.
Councillor Cassidy.
Normally when the bins are collected in Ratton, it's usually late in the day.
They changed their times.
And obviously, I don't know what was on at Veolia that day, whether they were having
and they came a bit early, did they?
Came through, that was just that one morning.
Thank you.
It was just the rubbish. And they came through extremely early.
And people got caught because they thought they'd come later in the day, which is what they normally would do. Okay, thank you. Are they back to doing later in the day?
Well, it was later in the day last pickup,
Okay. Well, if there's still a problem down there, we probably need to contact Veolia and just and ask them what their set time is so that the residents don't get caught out.
And they'll say it needs to be out the night before.
Oh, will they?
Yeah, absolutely. There is no set time. They just say the night before because certainly Devonport Council, for example, used to collect up until this financial year. Devonport Council used to collect their own with their own trucks. Veolia have actually taken that waste stream on, so they probably have collections to do in Devonport as well as Ratton. So they've got to manage their trucks and people as well. So
Sure.
Right, so that's the rule. Put them out the night before, and then you'll make sure that it gets collected. Councillor Hughes.
And also it was mentioned here about the bin police are going around. They have been going around.
Yes.
They're not going to tick on mine. So,
all right, so we have a recommendation about the Railton Community Information Evening. So if there are no more comments or questions, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour?
Aye.
Anyone against?
Vote against.
One against. Councillor Blenkhorn. Okay, so we have committees of council. We've got the Economic Development Committee meeting. We have a recommendation that the unconfirmed minutes of the Economic Development Committee meeting held on the 9th of October be received. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Hughes, Councillor Richards. Anyone got any comments to make about that?
So first up, Councillor Dickinson not here. I thank him for his job in the last couple of years, almost in the role of the chair of this committee, and I got elected. what we're trying to do is come up with something that we can actually hang our hat on, almost like that quarterly annual report, you know, where we've got some processes in place, and every year or whatever we can say, have we achieved what we were starting to set out, rather than just sort of come up with some ideas and throw them around and maybe they don't go anywhere. So the proposal is that we meet with the Latrobe's Economic Development Committee, hopefully sometime through November, to see whether there's any synergy sort of between the two. We're not sort of going to take on their ideas and they won't take on ours, but just see whether there's some sort of collaboration in there that we can maybe work together on. If not, we'll still remain, you know, each council's economic development committee, but that is the process. So if we do meet with those in November, possibly, you know, our first meeting in 2025, that we can start to set a strategy of where we want to go, and by the end of this term of council, we can actually tick off whether we achieved any of this or not, you know, so that we can actually, the community can have a look and say, well, these are the areas, you know, the committee's working in, and yes, they're achieving a goal, or no, they're not achieving a goal. Because I think I've just got this concern that we go nowhere lots of times because we haven't really got that target, what we want to do, and in maybe 2 or 3 areas of targeted areas, you know, for growth in our municipality. So.
Oh, well, that's, and thank you very much for taking on board the role of chairperson for that committee, because it is a very important committee in the running of our council. So I appreciate that you've taken on that role.
And through your chair, I just wanted to highlight that part of our quarterly report, you would have seen that the economic development strategy, which is going to be reviewed and refreshed, and I think that document will be important, like the annual plan, to provide some direction that we can, as you highlight, report on periodically, just to show some progress towards those outcomes. So it's going to be an important part of the committee's role over the course of the coming months, just to start to frame that up.
Yep.
Oh, well, that's a good way forward. So thank you for what the committee are doing. So we've got a recommendation, so I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. So we have the Kentish Council Audit Panel meeting held on the 30th of September. We have a recommendation that the unconfirmed minutes of the Kentish Council Audit Panel meeting held on the 30th of September 24 be received, and the following recommendations be endorsed: that the Councillor Code of Conduct and Staff Code of Conduct be reviewed together to ensure they are consistent. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Lane, Councillor Haig. So we have an attachment there from the minutes. Has anyone got any comments or questions? I'd just like to make the comment that Paul Viney is now the chair, and which we voted Paul in when we had that meeting here. So, and I believe he was very proactive and very engaging through the meeting. So that's really positive. All right, so I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. We have the Kentish Latrobe Joint Audit Panel meeting, and we have a recommendation that the unconfirmed minutes of the Kentish Latrobe Joint Audit Panel meeting held in September be received, and the following recommendation be endorsed: that a request for quote process be conducted regarding an internal audit engagement to review payroll compliance with the enterprise agreement and other industrial instruments, that a future follow-up procurement for development and delivery of a strategic internal audit cycle prioritised based on a risk assessment. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Lane, Councillor Haig. So anyone got any comments about the combined joint audit panel meeting? No one's got a comment or a question? No? Councillor Twaits.
Whether some of the meeting panel members say
something, yeah.
Thank you. Only that under the new guise of Paul, it is very dynamic, and we've got to work towards a new format. It was really refreshing. And that the joint one, as the minutes read, yeah, we became very comfortable with the last chair, and that was wonderful. It was good, but it's
different direction.
Yeah, really a good move. So I'm looking forward to seeing the next meeting where we're starting that journey together. And yeah, he's done it.
Any other comments? No. All right, well, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. Urgent business nil, closed meeting. Recommendation that the following items be discussed in closed session. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Lane, Councillor Twaits. Or any comments there? All right, then I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. So this completes our open session for our council meeting for this month. I'll declare the meeting closed. Right.